Welcome, viewers. For the past few days, events in the Middle East, in particular, the Israeli assault on Gaza and the earlier tragedy of Israeli civilians being targeted by Hamas, has obviously shaken the world as well as uh, opened up so many questions as to what is the future of this conflict and how is it going to be resolved. Two key themes have emerged. One is, of course, Israel's security and its civilian population's anxiety about further attacks, etc. But more importantly, what is happening in Gaza in terms of the breach and violations of international human rights law and international humanitarian law, whereby collective punishment and targeting of civilians is prohibited under Geneva Conventions and related legal instruments. I'm just going to present how things are today, and I will try in the coming days and weeks to update you all on what is being reported in the media. So let's begin. On Saturday, the Israeli military issued its strongest indication yet of an impending major ground operation in an integrated assault from air, sea, and land. Palestinians were allowed to move south along two key Gaza roads in the morning until the afternoon, perceived by some as a deadline. Thousands fled with the United Nations warning of a water crisis. Exodus to Egypt was restricted. Negotiations for humanitarian aid stalled over screening concerns, and Israel enforced a complete siege in response to a Hamas attack, further intensifying an already long standing blockade of Gaza supported by Egypt. Amid these updates, it is important to note that reporting on these developments varies in tone across different news outlets, reflecting diverse perspectives and, of course, priorities, and perhaps some would say political agenda as well. From the New York Times humanitarian focus to the Guardian's detailed coverage, and Democracy Now, which is an independent media outlet based in the US, and the interviews they are putting up. And of course, Al Jazeera, which is uh, a channel headquartered in Qatar. They have been reporting meticulously various developments in the recent crises. So let me begin. What the New York Times, one of its articles, presents a harrowing picture of the situation in northern Gaza, where Palestinian civilians are being compelled to leave their homes due to the looming threat of an Israeli ground invasion. This article also describes how the southern region, where many are relocating, is already grappling with resource shortages and the aftermath of a week of Israeli airstrikes, which have damaged transportation routes. The tragic consequence of these circumstances is highlighted as the article reports on airstrikes killing Palestinians who were trying to flee northern Gaza on the highway. The involvement of aid groups and the United Nations in condemning the Israeli evacuation order as illegal under the international law has been extensively covered, underscoring the gravity of the situation. The article in the New York Times emphasizes the palpable fear of a looming humanitarian crisis and the desperate need for negotiations to establish channels so that humanitarian aid could reach the affected populace. Remember, Gaza has no electricity, water, and there is severe food shortage, and this is just a crazy, outlandish situation. This article, also in the New York Times reporting, provides a detailed account of the deadly airstrikes that have severely affected Gaza, causing a surge in casualties and, of course, overwhelming the already strained medical system. The human cost of this conflict is the rising number of casualties, and therefore it calls for international intervention. Let us also add that the global response to the crises, such as protests in the Middle East, parts of Europe, and diplomatic efforts to ensure the safe passage of American citizens and foreigners out of Gaza have also gained momentum over the past few days. The engagement of US officials and their meetings with regional leaders reflect the urgency and, of course, the complexity and, unfortunately, the partisan nature of the United States foreign policy at this stage. The UK based Guardian, in stark contrast, zooms in on a particular event: the sudden breach of Gaza Israel barrier by Hamas militants during the Sukkot holiday. It provides a vivid description of the audacious actions taken by militants, including the use of explosive devices dropped from drones to disable communication towers and remote controlled machine gun posts. Subsequently, Hamas fighters infiltrated through these openings, and the chaos, the lack of preparedness on part of the Israeli defense, uh, and their inability to respond effectively have been under global spotlight and scrutiny. And so much has been said already. I need not repeat that. The Guardian has also offered a detailed account of the daring and coordinated actions of Hamas militants, from and the tools that they use, from wire cutters to motorized paragliders, and how they infiltrated Israeli territory, and also delves into the motives behind these actions, attributing them to a desire to capture hostages for negotiation and to challenge what Hamas perceives as Israeli occupation. Human cost is a central theme in the Guardian reporting, and the tragic loss of life, hostage taking, overrunning of military bases near Gaza borders. So, and chilling testimonies from survivors and witnesses are included. And therefore, we have to remember, while we are alerting on the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, the tragic loss of life in Israel, and especially targeting of civilians, is an issue that ought to be given weight. Human lives, wherever they are, whoever they are equally important and valuable. And unfortunately, we've also seen rise of anti-Semitism in many parts of the world, including uh, you know, Twitter spaces and social media spaces, which is absolutely uncalled for and unacceptable. Um, Democracy Now, led by Amy Goodman, who has a daily show there. Its interview with Mohammed Shahida offers a personal account of the dire situation in Gaza. Shahida, speaking from Copenhagen, describes the widespread destruction and suffering, emphasizing that this surpasses anything he has seen in his lifetime or in Gaza's history. The ongoing Israeli airstrikes and shelling have caused massive damage to the infrastructure, making evacuation extremely challenging and dangerous. And Shahida also highlights the international community's complicity in Israel's actions. Some say silence, some say active support to Israel's high-handed tactics. The European and US officials have to be, this interview at Democracy Now, and many other voices in the media are calling upon the Western governments to pressurize Israel to change its course of action, and also to rethink this strategy of collective punishment. Unfortunately, mainstream media has not really been highlighting this particular aspect, and the Palestinian voices, especially the civilians and children. Remember, half of Gaza's population are minors. How are they responsible for what Hamas has done in Israel? I mean, that is a question that so many across the globe are asking, and I myself often wonder, why are they being punished? Um, Al Jazeera has also been reporting extensively in about not just Gaza but also military checkpoints in West Bank, highlighting their impact on daily lives of the Palestinians. It suggests a connection between recent Hamas attacks on southern Israel and unchecked violence initiated by Israeli settlers in the West Bank. And This includes hit and burn attacks against Palestinians and their properties, often without intervention from the Israeli military. The article raises questions whether the Israeli government has turned a blind eye to settler aggression or tacitly encouraged it with the goal of protecting settlers from potential attacks by Palestinians. It notes that the checkpoints are primarily located along the separation barrier, a wall that stretches over 700 kilometers through Palestinian territories, effectively isolating the West Bank from Israel. The existence of these barriers has made daily life difficult and complicated for the Palestinian population. The article further suggests that checkpoints and the security of settlements require significant manpower, which poses a challenge in deploying all available forces for an expected Gaza invasion within a specific time frame. This consideration is a key element in Al Jazeera's reporting. Um, and I think the media yesterday, i.e., on Saturday, this weekend has been reporting that Israeli military is all set to for a major ground operation, and basically the deadlines have been given. The people of Gaza have been asked to leave their homes and to move to the northern part, but the question is, where are they going to go? The Egyptians have blocked the border. The Israeli border is blocked. Basically, 2.2 million people or so, half of them children, are trapped. We just hope that the international community, the United Nations, would play their due role under the international law and covenants and not let this situation get out of hand before it's too late. Thank you, and I will be back with more updates as this tragic situation unfolds.